Hi, my name is Sarah Cully, and for my topic presentation this week, I will be talking about Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was the first elected Prime Minister of Pakistan, and how and why he was hung. A little background. Bhutto was educated in Western universities. He got a law degree from Berkeley and Oxford. He taught and practiced law in England before returning to Pakistan, where he entered politics, as well as continuing his law. He was a cabinet member and was appointed the Foreign Minister of Pakistan in 1963 by President Khan, who was a military ruler. However, in 1965, after the Tashkent Agreement was signed with India, Bhutto and President Khan didn't see eye to eye anymore. Bhutto felt strongly about the direction of the government, and he spoke out about not having a dictator as a leader. He was thrown in jail, and after he was released from jail, he founded the PPP, the Pakistan Political Party, in 1967. Within a few years, he was handed the office of president in 1971 and was the first civil martial law administrator of the country. He was the fourth president of Pakistan, and in 1973 he quitted the office of president and became the ninth prime minister of Pakistan from 1973 to 1977. It's interesting to note that during this time he still held the office of chairman of the PPP until April of 1979. During his regime, he handpicked General Zia to be his chief staff of army. This was a very calculated move. He felt that General Zia was not prestigious enough to run the military, not necessarily independent enough, and felt that this would require him to be more dependent on Bhutto, and that's what he wanted. And so he had hand-selected him to be the general of his armies. During his regime, Bhutto signed the Simla Agreement, where 93,000 prisoners from the War of 1965 were released. But most notably, the approval for the new Constitution of Pakistan in 1973 is his most famous and greatest work that he did. Even though during his time as a leader, the country saw setbacks in healthcare and education and nationalization, the people still loved him and highly regarded him. And in 1977, during the parliamentary elections, the PPP won by a large margin, and the opposition parties alleged that there was rigging of the election, that the votes had been rigged, and violence spread across the country. And on July 5th of 1977, Bhutto and members of his cabinet were arrested by troops under the order of General Zia in what is considered a bloodless coup. They were acting on orders to arrest them due to the violence and the unrest in the country, because of the accused rigging of the elections. Bhutto, at this time, imposed martial law in the country, and the constitution was suspended, and all of the assemblies were dissolved. Bhutto spent about a month in jail, and when he was released, the general promised elections would happen within 90 days. However, on September 3rd of 1977, the army arrested Bhutto again on charges of authorizing the murder of a political opponent from back in March of 1974. His trial didn't begin until October of 1974, and the charges were conspiracy of murder. And between his arrest and the trial, Ahmed Kasuri came forward and accused him of 15 attempts of assassination on his life as well. And he said that he was actually the target of the assault on the car that had killed Nawab Khosrowshahi. During the trial for on the charges of conspiracy, his wife, Bhutto's wife, had hired the top lawyers for his defense, and he was released after 10 days. After 10 days. This is when General Zia realized that for him to have the power that he wanted, he was going to have more support or more control of the judiciary system. And so the justice, Samadani, was immediately removed from the bench, and General Zia went to a good friend of his that he'd grown up with that had no legal training and had never been in the judiciary service or knew any of that, and appointed him as the Chief Justice of Pakistan. General Zia also went to Maulavi Mushtaq Hussain and appointed him the acting Chief Justice of the Lahore High Court. Now, this was a very calculated move because General Zia knew that Hussain had been a foreign secretary to Bhutto in 1965, and it was widely known that Hussain did not like or trust Bhutto, and that he would do whatever General Zia asked him to do, just because of how much hatred he had for Bhutto. So after Bhutto's arrest and he was presented to the High Court, he was brought before the Lahore High Court instead of a lower court, where Hussain was the acting Chief Justice. By doing this, it deprived him of a level of appeal, and Hussain denied bail to him. Also during this time, the director of the Federal Security Force took the stand and testified, saying that 4 members of his security force had organized the ambush on Kasuri's, or the attempted assassination on Kasuri, and that it was because of orders that had come down from Bhutto. When Bhutto began his testimony on January 25th of 1978, Chief Hussain, he closed the courtroom to all the observers. Bhutto demanded a retrial because he said that the Chief Justice was biased, and of course the court refused his demand. On March of 18th, 1978, Bhutto was sentenced to death, and the trial lasted 5 months. It was during this time that it was said that the Supreme Court said that the president of Pakistan could change his death sentence. Now, General Zia, he was the quote president of Pakistan, and he didn't act on the claim or on the application, and he said that it went missing. And so this sent Bhutto to a cell in the Rawalpindi jail, and his family appealed on his behalf before the Supreme Court. But General Zia, still through this process, he was trying to make it difficult for Bhutto to once again get released. His lawyers managed to allow him the right to conduct his own defense in the Supreme Court. And on December 18th, 1978, Bhutto made his appearance in public court, and the courtroom was packed. At this time, he had been on death row for 9 months, and they had not given him fresh water for 25 days. So when he stood before that court, he had been treated horribly and in dire conditions, and he addressed the court for 4 days without any notes. His appeal was completed on December 23rd of 1978, and on the 6th of February 1979, the Supreme Court issued the guilty verdict, and it was a decision of a 4-3 majority. The family had 7 days to appeal and the court granted a stay of execution while they studied the petition. On February 24th of 1975, the next court hearing began, and Zia said that the appeals were, he called it a trade union activity, and Bhutto's family, they tried to rally support from the international community. In fact, Colonel Gaddafi in Libya, he said that if General Zia would exile him, that he could exile Bhutto to Libya for the rest of his life. However, he did not agree to that, and he rejected that request, and upheld the death sentence. Bhutto's execution was a shock. In a letter that he sent to his daughter when he was in jail, he said, "It is better to die at the hands of a dictator than to die in the history." On March 24th of 1979, the Supreme Court dismissed his appeal, and Zia upheld the death sentence. Bhutto was hung in the central jail, Rawalpindi, on April 4th of 1979. I've included here, this is a picture of General Zia, and with a link to a short little video clip of him talking to a reporter about Bhutto and how he felt that the sentence that was handed down was fair. So I encourage you to look at it. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. And here's a list of my references if you have any questions. Thanks.